Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing so-called vaccine passports, vaccine mandates. I've gone ahead and made a video where we discuss in detail the fact that Thailand has rescinded so-called vaccine mandates for those looking to visit Thailand, those looking to travel into Thailand. There is no longer a requirement that those folks have the vaccine in order to come in. That's not really the thrust of this video. This video is very much an opinion piece. It's my personal opinion, or my opinions, as are all these opinion pieces. And anytime I say it's my opinion, for that matter. I've got real issues on a very fundamental level, beyond legality. And honestly, I think, you go look up the Nuremberg codes, you go look up, many of the laws regarding informed consent, basic rule. The big one that's just been nagging at my brain has been the fact that medical privacy. This medical privacy was always considered on par with doctor-patient privacy, doctor-patient privilege, attorney-client confidentiality. Doctor-patient privilege was always viewed on par with that. I remember my first literal day of law school, at the time sitting judge that ended up being our ethics professor, talking about why legal privilege exists, that people have to feel comfortable. They have to feel able to fully disclose their situation to their attorney, to their doctor, to their, and even to some extent to their priest. There's a priest penitent privilege under certain circumstances. There's even a sources privilege for journalists and things. We're not even going to get into that. It's a very different thing. But in the case of privilege involving and medical secrecy, it's there so that people can fully communicate with their doctor, with their lawyer. Let's leave lawyers aside because we're talking doctors now. It's there for that purpose, to be able to gain unfettered advice from their physician and to get the real information about what's going on with a person's own body. Medical privacy is really, really important. And I don't think people think it all the way through. Think about it. If you have to worry that everyone and their dog is going to know your medical condition by going to a doctor, are you really going to want to go to a doctor? Unless it's an absolutely I'm hit by a bus and I'm bleeding out. Yes, they're going to take me to the emergency room. I'm going to see a doctor. But are you going to want to go see a doctor to discuss, intimate things like sexually transmitted diseases, or the fact that, I may have a disease that'll kill me and I don't want people to know that because they'll treat me different, or, there's myriad things I can just think of off the top of my head why I want medical privacy. And I don't understand why, because somebody wants to get onto a plane and go somewhere, they automatically forfeit that right. I don't believe that that's correct. On a deeper level than even that, though, the thing that really, really unnerves me about the notion of a vaccine mandate is, at the end of the day, how can a society really call itself free if it makes people do things to their own body? I just don't, I understand it's not, and I love that in the discussions I've had on this with people who disagree with me, it goes to a very creepy place very quickly. Because, I'll say, look, to me, that's the bright line rule, is my big issue with masks. If people can say what you have to wear, we're in a real problem. You really need to be looking close at your government if it starts telling you what to wear. And we're beyond looking close at what the government's doing when they tell you what to put into your body. To my mind, and I think this is a basic human right, I'm not even going to get into the legal arguments under the U.S. Constitution. This is a much more broad video. I could do one on that and go through the myriad ways it violates that particular document. But this is basic human rights stuff. You can't, and this is beyond legality. I thought of calling, there are moral and ethical implications. I thought of that being the title of this video. It's beyond even that. It's just purely moral at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you have to look at this for what it is. And under circumstance, I get it. If there's an existential threat to people, okay. If the Black Plague was ravaging through, and the Black Plague's a little different because you get that from rats, but if it was contagious somehow and there was a vaccine, well, pretty strong argument on that. Smallpox is a great example. In fact, I had a lot of people, even lawyers and amateur wannabe lawyers, whatever, on social media years back, before I frankly left most of social media in a personal capacity, because it was overwhelming how insane and absurd and surreal the world had become, especially in a social media context. But I remember talking to people back then, a couple of years back, that were saying, well, there's a Supreme Court case that says that it's okay. Well, I went and looked that up. It actually said it's okay to fine people. It didn't say you can make them take it. That was the original case. And this was really compelling to my mind, it was a smallpox issue, as I recall. If I'm not mistaken, it was something that, there's existential threat issues to a community. Smallpox can ravage through it. Now, people survived it. And let's also be clear, in an American context, there's no asterisk at the bottom of the Bill of Rights that says, except in cases of pandemics or public health. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into that, but one of the big founders, George Washington himself, had smallpox and never felt the need to restrict all the rights and freedoms in that document because of smallpox. So even smallpox, I think it's hard to do it's hard for me to get my mind around the notion that rights are just abrogated because disease exists. That's my only point in bringing this up, sort of from an American context. But just from an international, just a broad-based general context, I'm sorry, but I cannot morally get my mind around the notion that a person or a state or an organization or the state itself can just unilaterally and, quite honestly, rather arbitrarily and capriciously, and this is across the board, I'm not pointing out any one state or government or anything. I mean, the whole thing in my mind globally has been applied arbitrarily and capriciously, which is the basis under many U.S. laws for throwing out a law and saying, no, this isn't legal. It's arbitrary and capricious. Long story short is that's how I've seen this dealt with across the board. Thailand I'm not pointing fingers at Thailand by any stretch of the imagination. Multiple countries pulled this kind of stuff, and in my mind, it's wrong there too. At the end of the day, you cannot force people without a really compelling reason. And I'm sorry, sitting here in January of 2023, I ain't seeing any compelling reasons. I just don't see where they're at. We know what this thing is. We've been dealing with it for 3 years. No, it does not have a fatality rate that comes anywhere near the levels that I think it would be necessary, or not necessary, but it would be even reasonable to presume that these kind of mandates are warranted. We're beyond that now, I think. At least with this given disease, we're beyond that. So the point I'm trying to make in this video, I guess I'm just trying to get my own thinking across a little bit. A lot of people have asked me about this since I put out the first video on this. What do you think personally, like on a personal? Well, that's what I think. I think on a moral level, barring literally an existential threat, I don't see where any government, anybody, gets to tell you what you put into your body for any reason, frankly, in any context. I just don't see it. Again, barring a major existential threat, which just simply isn't here, I just don't see where you get the justification for that under any circumstances.